Okay, أهلا وسهلا. We are in الدرس الثاني, chapter 2. So if you have your book, افتحوا الكتاب. احنا الآن في صفحة 28. So page 28 is where we're going to start. And in the last lesson, we talked about plural patterns, and we talked about them في الضمائر in pronouns, في الفعل in verbs, and particularly present tense verbs. واليوم نتكلم عن الأسماء, nouns. Okay, and nouns include, for Arabic, it includes adjectives, so words that are nouns and adjectives. Okay, so we're going to look at what are the plural patterns in nouns and adjectives. Now, the very first thing that we want to talk about is what are the three major patterns. Okay, there are three major patterns, and the first one here is Germa al-Mudhakkar, Mudhakkar. And you're going to write this word down. Mudhakkar means masculine. And every time we talk about masculine, we're going to use the word mudhakkar. We used this a little bit before in the last chapter when we were talking about adjectives and how they match the nouns that they follow and describe. Right? So, Germa mudhakkar is when you are making a masculine word plural. Okay, so Germa al-Mudhakkar, it's going to be the human sound masculine plural. And we're going to talk about all three of these categories in a lot of depth. So this is just an overview. And then, of course, if you have masculine, then you have to have feminine. So we have here Germa al-Mu'annath. Al-Mu'annath is going to be the feminine plural. And then we have another category, and that is Germa al-Taksir. Taksir means broken. So these are broken plurals. Okay, في هذا الدرس, in this lesson, we are going to be talking about جمع المذكر وجمع التكسير. And we'll come back to جمع المؤنث, we'll come back to, inshallah, in الدرس الثالث, okay, chapter 3. So when we get to that, we'll talk extensively about that. So we're going to start with the first category. And that first category is جمع المذكر. And sometimes we call it جمع المذكر السالم, which is human sound masculine plurals. Now, the word that we're using here, sound, literally it just means that you have a suffix, and that suffix is added to the end of the singular noun, and that's what makes it plural. And it's very easy. It's just a cut and paste. You have a suffix, and you just add it to the singular noun, and it makes it plural. Okay. Now, what's important to note about these group of words, okay, words that follow this pattern, right, if you will, they are words that are human. Words that are related to human qualities. Okay, so think of human qualities as, for instance, in English, words like men, right? Or words like teachers or doctors, right? Or specialists or engineers, right? Those are types of words that are describing humans. So these are words that describe human qualities that happen to be, not qualities, but humans that happen to be masculine, referring to men. Okay, and this is going to be important when we're talking later about plural agreement, is that we have masculine and feminine, right? And we have singular and plural, but we also have these categories of what is human versus what is non-human. So things that are human act a certain way or treat a certain way grammatically, and things that are non-human, meaning inanimate objects, tables, cars, doors, pens, right? Those types of words are inanimate objects. They're non-human. Okay, so Jama' al-Mudhakkar, we're talking about masculine plurals. Masculine plurals that happen to be human. And the rule is actually very simple. The rule is simply that you add a waw noon to the end of the word. So pull up my iPad here. There we go. So for example, on that slide, make this a little bit thicker, we have the word Masri. Okay, Masri, Egyptian. Remember, this was a nisba adjective. Egyptian. So it's referring to a man who's Egyptian person, right? So it's human and it's masculine because it doesn't have a dot marbut on it. So a word like this, if I wanted to make it plural, all I have to do is add waw noon. So that is the rule. The rule is when we have Jama' al-Mudhakkar, when you have the human masculine plural, All you do is you take the singular word and you add waw nun to it. Okay. So if we were to do this, pull up a different color, we now have Masri. There's a shadda, remember, because it's a nisba adjective. And then we simply add waw nun, Masriyun. So now this right here is, Egyptian, meaning like an Egyptian, versus this right here, which is Egyptians. So in English, right, you just hack that S on. So think of that as this waw nun. Let's do another one. Let's do Amriki. Amriki, American. And we want to say Americans. We're describing a group of people now. We add the waw nun to it. So we take this word, Amriki, and add waw nun. Amrikiyun. Okay, Amrikiyun. This is also going to, let me erase this. This is also going to work for, these are adjectives that we're using right here as examples. Here's another adjective you could use. Mashghul, meaning busy. If I wanted to use the word busy and I'm describing a group of people and it's plural, we're going to say mashghulun. Okay. You simply take the singular word right here that happens to refer to human, happens to be masculine, and what you do is you add a waw nun to that. Okay. Now, the types of words that follow this pattern are three basic types of words. The first one, most nisba adjectives. So we did Masriyun, Amrikiyun, right? Those are nisba adjectives. Words that tell you where someone is from, American, French, and so on and so forth. There is one exception to that. And here's, well, there are more than one exception, but the one exception that we're focusing on in this lesson is this one. Arabi, with a shadda, there should be a shadda here on the ya, means Arab. And if I want to say Arab and I'm referring to a group of people, like they're Arab, that word has to be plural. And to make it plural, it's Arab. Okay, so here's your exception. Arabi, that's plural, is Arab. And that's an example of a broken plural, which we're going to talk about in a little bit. Okay, so in this case, if I have the word Arabi and I wanted to make it plural, I wouldn't add a waw nun to it because that's an exception to this rule. So that's the first thing. Nisba adjectives always take this rule, okay, most of the time. And then the second one, nouns and adjectives that begin with mim usually take this rule. So for instance, mashghul means busy, right? It refers to human beings. Mutarjim, remember that was a new word. Mutarjim يعني translator. So if I wanted to say translators, it's a human word, right? And it's masculine. So we're simply adding waw nun, mutarjimun. So words that start with a meme that are nouns or adjectives referring to humans will generally follow this pattern where you just add a waw nun to make it plural. And then the last one that we have here is adjectives that end in alif nun can take waw nun. Okay? So for instance, if I want to say ta'aban, ta'aban is tired. And to make it plural, I can add ta'abanun, waw nun to the end. Now, one thing to note is some of these words do have multiple plurals. Like they might have a form of their plural that takes a waw nun, and they might have another form of their plural that is a broken plural. And some dialects use some, more than others. It just depends on what region you are in. Okay, but the general rule in Fusha, in modern standard Arabic, is that if you have an adjective that ends with alif nun, it usually can take a waw nun at the end to make it plural, and that's completely fine. Okay, so those are what we would call masculine plural. So what I want to do is I want to look at the textbook. So we are going to move to the next slide here. And you're going to look at page 29 in your book. Page 29 in your book has this chart. So this is the chart that I want to focus on. And these are examples of words that take this pattern, Germa Mudhakkar. So in this pattern, you're simply adding a waw nun to the end of the word. Now, one other thing to note is to make a word plural that fits this pattern, you could also add a ya nun to the end. So, for instance, if you have mashghulun, you could also say mashghulin, ya nun. In this class right now, where we're at, we're only focusing on the waw nun. The ya nun is only used when a word is an object, right? An object of a preposition or the direct object of a verb in a sentence. And we haven't done those type of structures yet. So for the time being, all of the sentences we're doing will take waw nun. One thing to note, or another thing to note, is that many dialects tend to use the ya nun all the time. Right? They won't separate out when you have to use waw nun or ya nun. They'll only use ya nun. So if you speak a dialect, make sure that you're practicing with the waw nun, not the ya nun. I'm not going to be giving you any examples where you're going to be using ya nun to make a word plural. Okay? But when you look here, it's going to show you both options. So for instance, we have Masri, Masriyun, Masriyin. It shows you both examples because it is very possible that you're going to see Masriyin, but we're not using it yet because we just haven't done that specific grammatical structure. Okay. Lubnani, Lubnani, Lebanese. How would we say Lebanese? I mean, in English, we wouldn't say Lebaneses, right? But Lebanese, plural. Lubnaniyun, we simply add waw nun. Okay. Suri, meaning Syrian. Suriyun. So notice we're only focusing on waw nun right now. Iraqi, meaning from Iraq. Iraqi, Iraqiyun. Okay, so from Iraq. Mutarjam, Mutarjam, remember, was translator. Mutarjam, Mutarjimun. موظف, ما معنى موظف? موظف. Good. Employee. موظف. موظفون. متخصص. ما معنى متخصص? These are new words that we did in the last lesson, right? In the vocab lesson. متخصص, a specialist or specializing in, right? متخصصون. مشغول. Here we have an adjective that starts with meme. Notice these are all adjectives that start with meme, and they refer to human beings. And all of these ones that we looked at are all examples of nisba, telling where someone's from. Right? So all of these adjectives that start with meme, we simply added waw nun. Mashghulun. Remember again, we're only talking about human, masculine. This is human and this is masculine, not the feminine yet. Okay? We're going to skip these two because those are we have them in dialect here. Gharib. Gharib. This is one that we did in 130. A word means strange, okay, or stranger. And it is an adjective that happens to refer to humans, so it can also take the waw nun. Gharibun. However, I added right here, there's another plural that gharib has that is more frequently used. And that is ghuraba. Ghuraba. That's just a more frequently used plural for gharib. Okay. So, of course, some of these have two. So, gharib has gharibun and it has ghuraba. It has two different plurals. Okay, so this right here is a chart of your masculine plurals, your human masculine plurals. We are going to move on now to the next category. Okay. There we go. And in the next category, we're talking about Germa at-taksir. Okay, Germa at-taksir. And Germa at-taksir, are broken plurals. Okay. It's here. Germa. Germa means plural. التكسير. So plurals of broken, meaning plurals that are broken. Okay. And what a broken plural means is that you don't have a straight suffix that you're simply adding to the end of that word. What you're doing instead is you're breaking the word and rearranging the letters in a different way. You might be adding or taking off some letters and sort of rearranging them. That's what it means by broken. Okay? So taksir, meaning broken. And the broken plural category, okay, can include words that are human or non-human. Whereas Germa al-Mudhakkar, the pattern that we did right before this, was strictly for humans. You will never see a word that is non-human, like a word like kalb, which means dog, or qitta, which means cat, or table, tawila. You will never see qalam, pen. You'll never see a non-human word take waw noon, because that's only reserved for human attributes and human words that happen to be masculine. Jama' taksir, however, includes all of them. So you can have human words that are jama' taksir, you can have non-human words that are jama' taksir. And what you really have to do is you have to memorize them. Okay? This is going to take a little bit of memorization, but a lot of these words rhyme with one another because they fit different patterns that are similar. Okay? So once you start noticing those patterns, it'll become a lot easier to remember them. So here's some examples that I'm giving you. Okay, and it's also on the top of page 30. Okay, Kitab. Kitab means book. And from now on, whenever you see a noun, it's always going to be the singular word. And then this jim, which stands for Germa, which is plural. So whatever is after the jim, that means that that is the plural form of that noun. So kitab is kitab wahid, yani one book. If I say kutub, this plural word that's after, that is books. So that's the plural form. Kitab, kutub. Now notice, what did we do to get from kitab to kutub? What happened in the word? We lost this alif. We added 2 dhammas to the word, and then we got kutub. That's what it means by broken. We're either removing or adding some letters and changing around the harakat. Okay, so kitab, kutub. Kitab, kutub, book and books. Okay, here's another one. Medina. Medina, city. Notice it has a ta' marbuta. So this pattern also includes masculine or feminine words. So we can have human words, non-human words, masculine words, feminine words. All of those categories can be included in this word, which is why students find it slightly confusing. But really, it's memorizing. This is going to be a lot of memorization for these charts. Okay, so Medina, city. If I want to say cities, Medina, Jama' mudun. Mudun. Notice how both of these rhyme. They have 1, 2, 3 letters, and the first letter both have dhamma. Kutub, mudun. So they rhyme. Okay, that's what we call a pattern. Okay, a wazan. It's a pattern. We're going to talk about patterns a little bit later on in the semester. But just one thing to notice. Notice these words and how they rhyme with each other. And they rhyme because they take the same harakat on the same number letter in the word. So the first letter or the second letter or the third letter, right? So in this one, all of the first words, both of the first letters in this word have dhamma, right? Kutub, mudun. Both of the second letters also have dhamma. To and do, right? That's what we call a pattern. It's what helps you remember that, okay, this rhymes. Okay? So those are some examples, and we're going to go over a couple of more examples. Let's actually just go through the chart that's in the book, because that'll be easiest. Okay, so let's look at at page 30 still. And we have, oops, we have two charts that are on page 30. So all of the words that we're going over in this lesson and all those charts, those are things that you need to memorize. There's a Quizlet that you can use for online flashcards, but I would also recommend writing them. So write the singular on one side and the plural on the other side. Okay. And just for your own reference, mufrad, right here, means singular. Okay. So mufrad is singular, whereas Germa is plural. So just write the singular on one side and the plural on the other side. There we go. Okay, so let's look at some examples. So this right here, we're looking at a pattern called af'al. Everything is going to rhyme with af'al. Everything is going to start with the a sound, and we're going to be adding an alif to the end of the word. So let's look at some of these and see if we can notice and hear the similarities. ولد. ما معنى ولد? ولد. Boy. To make it plural, أولاد. Notice we added here an alif hamza, and we added here a sukoon and an alif. أولاد. So أولاد here means boys. It's plural. It can also mean children, boys and girls. Okay. ولد, أولاد. Now, here's one thing to note. Walad happens to be a masculine word, and it happens to be a human word, but it doesn't fit the first pattern of Germa al-Mudhakkar. Because in Germa al-Mudhakkar, those are human masculine words that happen to be nisba, or they are adjectives or words referring to humans that start with a meme, or they end in alif nun. Those are the three general patterns that fit Germa al-Mudhakkar. This doesn't fit any of those. That means that even though it's human and even though it's masculine, it's taksir, it's broken. Okay? So walad, awlad. And this goes back to saying that Germa taksir, the broken plural, includes things that are human, words that are human and non-human. صاحب. صاحب. ما معنى صاحب? Friend. صاحب. Okay? Friend, and sometimes people use it for the word boyfriend. Sahib is just someone you have suhba with, you're in close contact with, you're with them, they're your companion. Okay, Sahib, ashab, companions or friends. Notice we did the same thing as awlad. We have alif hamza, we have a sukoon, and we have this alif. Ashab, friends. So if I said my friends, أصحابي, my friends. اسم, ما معنى اسم? اسمي تزيين. اسم, ما معنى اسم? Name. ممتاز. Okay, اسم follows the same pattern. أسماء. اسم, أسماء. Do you notice any patterns here? ولد, أولاد. صاحب, أصحاب. اسم, أسماء. Notice the a in the beginning and the a at the end. That's what is rhyming in all of these. Amal. Amal meaning work, and the plural of it works. Amal. Amal. Remember, amal and shugul both mean the same thing. Shugul, ashghal. Amal, a'mal. Shugul, ashghal. Shay. Here's a new word. It means thing. Shay. We're going to do the same thing here. Alif hamza. Sukoon on the sheen. Add an alif. Ashya. Things. Ashya. Khabar. Khabar here means news. Khabar is news, like one news. In English, news and news, the plural and the singular are both the same. In Arabic, there's two separate words. So the plural, akhbar. Newses. We don't use that word in English. Okay. Akhbar. So awlad, ashab, asma, a'mal, ashghal, ashya, akhbar. Notice they all rhyme. They all have the sound in the beginning and the sound at the end. Okay, here's another pattern. And this is on the same page 30. And this is a pattern called Faroul, meaning, ooh, we add a wow to the word to make it plural. Okay, so let's look at some examples. Bait, ما معنى بيت? Should know this word. House. Bait, buyut. And we covered this one in 130. Bait, buyut. Buyut, meaning houses. Bait, buyut. Dars. Sukun here. Dars. Durus. Dars is a lesson. So durus, lessons. صف. ما معنى صف؟ هذا صف باللغة العربية صح؟ صف. صفوف. 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 Classes. So notice all of these we're adding a wow in the middle of the word. And here, because صف has a shadda on the fa, we separate out those two because shadda means there's two of those letters, right? So we just separate out. Fasl, fusul. Fasl can also be class and it can be season, like seasons of the year. So fusul would mean seasons. Okay, it could also, of course, mean classes. Bank. Bank. Sounds exactly like what you hear. Bank. Bank. Bunuk. Banks. Bank. Bunuk. Fils. Fulus. Fulus is money. Monies. And money. Okay? This is the word that's used more often. We don't use fils very often. Okay? Fulus. We always want more. Huh? Okay, so these are some examples that we have of Germa at-Taksir. If you go to the next page, so page 31 in your book, on the top there's 2 rows of words, and these are rows of words that are also Germa at-Taksir, but they're most of them, not all of them, are examples of words that are human, like walad and sahib. We saw those words were human. A lot of these other words, like everything that we did here, bayt, dars, all of these words are non-human. So here's a couple more examples of words that are human, minus the first one. Bab, meaning door. Abwab. Bab, abwab, doors. Okay, now the rest of them are human. Khal. Khal. Khal is your uncle. Okay. Khal, your uncle, specifically your mother's brother. Okay, your mom's brother, that's your khal. It's on your maternal side of the family. And in next chapter, I think at chapter 3, lesson 3, we'll talk about familial relationships. Okay, so khal, akhwal. Akh. Akh, meaning brother. Ikhwa. Ikhwa. There's also ikhwan. So this one has multiple plurals. So these are just one example, right? Some of these words have multiple plurals. Okay, طالب. طالب. أنت طالب. أنت طالبة. You should know this word. Student. طالب. طلاب. طالب. طلاب. And we did this one in 130, where we did another word that rhymes. We did kalb, dog, and its plural was kilab. And we did that in the same because they rhyme with each other. Okay, طلاب and kilab kind of rhyme with each other in that they have the alif. Okay, but their first haraka is different. رجل. رجال. رجل ما معنى رجل؟ يعني رجال men. Okay. Jar, neighbor. Neighbors is going to be jiran. Okay, jiran. So notice these ones are broken, but they don't all match. Akhwal and rijal both have the alif at the end, but they don't both have the alif in the beginning. Right? Abwab and akhwal, those rhyme because they both have the alif hamza in the beginning and an alif near the end. So these are just more examples that you can see where broken plurals follow multiple different patterns. And it's just a matter at this point of memorizing. And then when we talk more specifically about patterns later on, you'll be able to understand and recognize what those patterns sound like and be able to come up with what the plural is for words that you don't know. Okay, so that is broken plurals. Okay, Germa, Germa al-Mu'annath we will cover in the next chapter. Okay, so we'll go over a long list of feminine words. So notice all of the words that we did in this list right here, except for one word, Medina, which I gave you just as an example. All of the rest of those words that I gave you are all examples of masculine words. They're all masculine plurals, right? So we'll cover the feminine plurals, meaning words that end in ta marbuta, and how we make those words plural. So we will cover that in the next chapter. So now what we want to talk about is plural agreement rules. Okay, when we talk about plural agreement rules, this is simply saying, what do we do when we have a noun followed by an adjective? So right now we're talking about noun-adjective phrases. And later on, this will also apply to other types of phrases and sentence structures that we get into. But for right now, we're talking about noun-adjective plurals. When you have a noun and you're describing that noun, okay, or if you have a word that happens to be plural and you're describing that word, if it's a pronoun or if it's a noun, whatever it is, they have to match. So when you're talking about things that are singular, they will always take words that are singular. And when you talk about something that's plural, they'll always take words that are plural. Simple example. هو مصري. He is Egyptian. Notice we're talking about one person. He is Egyptian. هو مصري. هو is the masculine. It's a pronoun and it's one person. What if I want to say they are Egyptian? I'm now talking about a group of people. Hum. Now I have hum. So huwa, remember, was the singular. It's he. But if I say hum, we talked about this in the last lesson, they. So now we're saying they. So because we're describing a plural, a group of people here, hum, it's not just one person, but it's a group of them, right? That means that the adjective that you have here, masri, has to take a waw nun in order to match the plurality of hum. Okay? Hum masriyun. They are Egyptian. Let's do some other examples. Let's say I want to do مترجم مشغول. مترجم مشغول. مترجم is translator. What is مشغول? Busy. So we're saying busy translator, one. If I want to change that and I want to say busy translators, in English we only take the noun and we add the s to it, but باللغة العربية and Arabic we have to make them both match. They both have to be plural. So we take mutarjim and we look at it and we try to figure out, okay, what pattern does it follow? Well, it's human and it's masculine and it happens to start with mim. So between the two rules that we've done, Jama' al-Mudhakkar or Jama' al-Taksir, which one is it going to fit? The first one, Jama' al-Mudhakkar, which means it's going to take a waw nun. So we're going to take this word and we're going to add waw nun to it. Mutarjimun. Now the adjective also has to match, so we have to look at that word specifically. Mashghul, it's still masculine, it's still human because we're referring to humans, and it also starts with a mim. So what did we say? Words that are human, they're masculine, they start with mim and they're adjectives, they also take waw nun. So mashghulun. Mutarjimun mashghulun. So mutarjim mashghul would mean Egyptian translator. Mutarjimun mashghul, not Egyptian, sorry, busy translator. Mutarjimun mashghulun, busy translators. So now what's happening is it has become plural. So your human plural agreement rule is just that whatever you're talking about when you're talking about humans, your noun, your subject, the thing you're talking about is plural, and whatever is describing it, the adjective or whatever you're telling us that it is, that also has to be plural. They have to match. Okay? So they must match. Noun and adjectives, when we talk about noun and adjective phrases, we said that they always have to match in gender, and now we know that they also have to match in number. Okay? Which we did this, right? We did, if we said طالب جديد, a new student. If it was a female student, طالبة جديدة, we would add ta مربوطة. So they're both feminine. So we talked about this already, that gender, we have to match it. But now, in the number, we also have to match it. So if the first word is mufrad, it's singular, its adjective will be mufrad. If the noun is Germa, it's plural, its adjective will also have to be Germa, plural. Okay? Whatever group it may be part of. So here's another example. Let's do that example. Whatever group it may be a part of, meaning this. If I said طالب أمريكي, American student, and I want to say American students. Pause the video, try to make it plural, and then come back. Okay, so we have to look at each word individually to figure out how do we make it plural. So if I said طالب, it is human, it is masculine, but it's not nisba, doesn't start with mim, it doesn't end in alif nun. So it's not going to fit Germa Mudhakkar where you take a waw nun. What is it going to take? It's a broken plural. So you look at that list that we did of broken plurals. It happens to be in this one right here. And what is its plural? طالب جمع طلاب. طلاب. So this is going to become طلاب. Now we have to make its adjective, أمريكي, American. That also has to be plural. أمريكي, what kind of word is it? It is masculine. There's no ta madbuta. It is human, and it's a nisba adjective, which means it's going to take waw nun. Very good. So we're going to take this word أمريكي, and we're going to add waw nun to it. أمريكيون. طلاب, and we're pronouncing it here with the shadda. طلاب أمريكيون. Okay. So those are some examples. So here I'm going to give you some examples. أنت لبناني. And the second one, الموظف العربي. You're going to make them plural. I'm going to give you a minute. You're going to make them plural. And think about each word. What are you doing to each word? Because now I'm giving you a bunch of examples. I'm giving you things that are pronouns. I'm giving you things that are human plurals, right? Things that are masculine, all different types of things that we're looking at. Okay, so in the first one, we have أنت لبناني. You are what? Lebanese. Maybe you are. You are Lebanese. أنت لبناني. What is أنت? It's you, and it's masculine. When you remember when we did the chart where we went over al-dama'ir, the pronouns, right? Singular pronouns. We went through a chart, and I can just move us to that. Let's look at that chart right now. Here was our chart. Anta was one. How do I say you, y'all, you plural? Antum. So that's what we would do. So notice we have this now singular when we talked about pronouns. You have the singular pronouns and you have plural pronouns. So now we're putting all of those things together and using them together. So if I have anta, that one's gonna that one is going to become antum. Now, Lubnani, what kind of word is that? So that is all, it's human, and it's masculine, and it happens to be nisba, Lubnani, because it's telling you that that person is Lebanese, they're from Lebanon. So what do you add to the end of that word? Very good, waw noon. So when you do that, it should look like this. Antum Lubnani. Now you're going to put it in medial position because you have to add your waw noon. Yun. Antum Lubnaniyun. Y'all are Lebanese. You guys are Lebanese. Okay? Okay, let's look at the other example. What was the other example? Al-Muwazzaf Al-Arabi. Al-Muwazzaf Al-Arabi. Oops. Just writing it out for you guys. And I'll switch my screen. So what is Al-Muwazzaf? What is Al-Muwazzaf? That was one of the new words that we did. Employee. Very good. Al-Muwazzaf is employee. And Al-Arabi is just Arab. So Arab employee. I want to say Arab employees, making a plural. Okay, Al-Muwazzaf. It's a word that is masculine. It's a word that's human. What's the first letter here? Skip the alif lam, because alif lam is just a prefix that you're adding to make it definite, right? It just makes it the employee, as opposed to an employee. So the first letter of the actual word is muwazzaf, mim. So it's human, it's masculine, starts with mim. What pattern does it follow? Good, Germa al-Mudhakkar. So Germa al-Mudhakkar, we add alif waw to it. So in this case, we take the word al-muwazzafun, right here. Keep the alif lam, keep everything the same. All you're doing is you're just adding this waw noon to the end. Al-Arabi. Human, masculine. Nisba tells you where someone's from. However, what did I say in that first slide? There was one exception to that rule. And what was that exception to the rule? Arabi, Arab. Very good. So that's one exception that you need to remember. Of course, there are other exceptions like Turkey, which is Turkish, Atrak. You have Maghribi, Maghariba. We have different words, but right now we're only focusing on this one. So we say Al-Arab, Al-Muwazzafun Al-Arab. So the Arab employees. Okay. Okay. So this right here is your rule for, there we go. This right here is your rule for human plurals. Human plurals. So now what I want to do is I want to talk about non-human plurals. What happens when you have a non-human plural that you're describing? What happens? This rule is very special because something different happens. In order for them to match, its adjective always has to be treated as feminine and singular. Okay? So that's the rule. Non-human plurals, their adjectives will always be feminine singular. Okay? Always. So the adjective is feminine and it's singular. Okay? So here's our example. Bayt Jamil. Beautiful house. Is that the example that I gave you guys there? Yeah. And in the one I gave in the slide, I made it the beautiful house. So I put alif lam here. Okay, al-bayt al-jamil, the beautiful house. So I want to make this plural. I want to say the beautiful houses. Okay, so I go one word at a time. Bayt. How do I make bayt plural? It's non-human, so it's obviously not going to fit the waw noon, the Germa al-Mudhakkar pattern. So it has to be taksir. So you look through your chart, and you should see in the chart that we did on page 30 that bayt is buyut. So it has the alif lam, so I'm just going to keep that there. Al-buyut. And then I have its adjective jamil. It's describing the houses. So the rule is this. When you have a noun and it is non-human plural, we call this jam'a ghayr aqil, non-human plural. غير عاقل means that something that doesn't have a mind, it's non-human. Okay? When you have non-human plurals, they're adjectives. We treat them as feminine singular. How would I take al-jamil and make it, it's already singular, how would I make it feminine? All I do is add a ta marbuta. That's it. Al-buyut al-jamila. And this right here is beautiful houses. Okay. Let's do another one that I have. As-saf as-sa'ab, the hard class. Put it in red. So pause the video and come back. Okay, as-saf as-sa'ab. This is, we're saying the hard class. So we want to make it plural. We want to say the hard classes. Notice in English, we only make the last word, the noun that you're talking about. That's the only thing that you make plural. باللغة العربية, we make both. The noun and the adjective both have to become plural. So as-saf is a broken plural. And its plural is sufuf. So you look at the word sufuf and you say, is it human? No, it's not human. So if it's not human, it's non-human, which means that it has to follow this pattern. So all you have to do is you have to take its adjective here, as-sa'aba, just to add ta marbuta. And if its adjective already has a ta marbuta, which we'll come to some examples later on in the next chapter, then you're not changing anything. You just keep it the same because its adjective is always going to be feminine. Okay? So let's look at a couple more examples. خبر قديم and then الدرس السهل. So go ahead and change those. You're going to make them plural. خبر قديم. خبر is news. قديم is old, so old news. And then the second one, الدرس السهل, the easy lesson, which inshallah this one is. Okay, so pause the video and come back. So let's look at this. خبر, broken plural. It's non-human, so it cannot follow the waw noon pattern. It's a broken plural. So you looked at your notes, you looked at the charts, and you said, oh, okay, خبر جمع أخبار. أخبار, non-human, therefore, its adjective is always going to take a ta marbuta. قديمة. Okay? So this rule that we're talking about with non-human plurals, we're talking about the adjectives, the words that describe non-human plurals. So don't make sure that you don't think that the non-human plural word itself will always take a ta marbuta. No, it's the word that describes it that is going to match by taking a ta marbuta. That's the rule. Okay? الدرس, non-human, therefore it cannot take the waw noon because waw noon Germa mudhakkar is only for humans. So that means it has to be a broken plural. So you looked at your list and you said, oh, okay, dars ad-durus. It has alif lam, so we're just gonna maintain it. We're just gonna keep it there. If it didn't have alif lam, you wouldn't put alif lam. Okay? Same with here. It has a alif lam, so we'll keep it. And then because this is a non-human plural, we're simply gonna add ta marbuta. Ad-durus as-sahla, the easy lessons. Okay? Okay. So that was that example. Now the next thing that you're going to look at is drill Tamreen Sab'a, drill 7. And drill 7 is on page 32. And what you have in drill 7 is you have sentences and you've got blanks. وبين القوسين يوجد كلمتين. There's parentheses and there's two words. And those two words are singular, they're mufrad. So you're going to make them plural so that they match in the sentence. So look at each word individually. Think to yourself when you look at the first word, first of all, is it human or is it non-human? If it's human, then you look at those three things that would make it fit the first category of Germa mudhakkar. Is it a nisba adjective? Does it begin with a meme? Or does it end in an alif noon? If it does any of those three, then we can have a waw noon, with the exception, of course, of Arabi. That's the one exception what we've done today. If it's not, it's human, but it's not one of those three, then it's going to be taksir, a broken plural. Okay? If it's non-human, then for sure it's going to be taksir. It's going to be a broken plural. And then for the second word, the adjective, you're going to go through the same thing. Right? You're going to say, okay, if it's human and it follows those one of those three qualities that we said for Germa Mudhakkar, then it's going to take waw nun. But if the noun that you're describing is non-human, then it's whatever that adjective is, all you're going to do is you're going to add a ta marbuta to it. Okay? So you're going to go ahead and do that drill, and then we will go over that when we go over homework.